Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining my video, my presentation. Um, the purpose of this video is to show the satanic demonic energies which have blindsided our world and has led us to the situation in which we live in today. We have entered a lawless society. We will be asking questions in this presentation. What was the purpose of bringing humanity to such a failure state? Who wins from this kind of situation? In this presentation, we will bring up facts, opinions, chronicles, the Word of God from the Bible, so the audience can make their own conclusion about the information that I'm presenting. What we're seeking here is the truth and where it's been hidden. And to end this quote, I will state, where the truth is hidden in plain sight, where good is treated like evil, and evil is treated like good. For it is written, Isaiah 5:20, woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who turn darkness to light and light to darkness, who replace bitter with sweet and sweet with bitter. Energies dominate the spiritual and physical world. Although you are unable to see these energies, it does not mean it is not in movement at all times. Energy is moved by power. There is a negative force and a positive force. When viewed in this manner, negative and positive forces are needed to create movement. In the war of good versus evil, in the spiritual realm, is referred to light versus darkness. In both cases, we need both negative and positive forces for movement. But the key here is who is driving that force? Is it coming from a light entity or a dark entity? It is written that a time will come when the veil will be uplifted. Does this mean that what is in the spiritual realm will be seen in the physical realm? Isaiah 44 verse 18 states, they know not, nor do they discern, for he has shut their eyes so that they cannot see, and their hearts, with their hearts, so they cannot understand. So let's start with CERN. What does the Large Hadron Collider do? There has been many speculations, conspiracy theories on what it is and its purpose. My viewpoint will always come from good versus evil, light versus dark, positive versus negative. Let's start with the company's logo, 666. The definition of a logo is a symbol or other design adopted by an organization to identify the company, its product, or so forth. The Bible tells us that 666 is the number of the beast. Revelation 13:18. This calls for wisdom. Let the person who has insight calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. That number is 666. This company has chosen to represent their company with the number of the beast. Why would this company, whose objective is science, research, choose their logo to be the mark of the beast? Most of its employees are physicists, supposedly the most intellectual minds in the world. Why would they pick a logo clearly first identified in the Bible? Most scientists state that the Bible is a mythical book. In the past, most of this community has founded its theories on atheism. Intellectual minds that have brought us the theories of evolution and the Big Bang Theory, because God was supposed to be a figment of your imagination. Second, CERN celebrated its reopening and announcement of the third run experiment for the Large Hadron Collider. CERN announced a week of celebration for this experiment. They will be celebrating the 3rd, 4th, and 5th of July. CERN is celebrating 10 years of the Higgs research. They will be presenting on the 3rd a documentary particle fever directed by Mark A. Levinson and Walter Murch. Also, on the 4th, physicists who work at CERN will be presenting the upgrades that the Large Hadron Collider received, other components that will be added to these experiments, and how Run 3 will be functioning, with collisions at unprecedented energy levels, marking the launch of new physics seasons at CERN's flagship accelerator, and how exciting this would be. The only thing I want you to note there is the unprecedented energy levels that they will be using. And here we go. On the 5th of July, Run 3 will be launched at a new energy world record of 13.6 trillion electron volts in stable beam collisions, marking the start of data taking to see how many particles they can find. Kindly note that the occultist, satanic, and demonic beings' rituals are directed by time, numbers, locations to create certain powers, to create the perfect storm, as they like to say. Understanding evil numbers and symbols. 13 is the number of rebellion. Also the location. The town in France where CERN is partially situated is called Saint Genus Poioli. The name Poioli comes from the Latin Apalliacum, and it is believed that in Roman times a temple existed in honor of Apollo, and the people who lived there believed that it is a gateway to the underworld. It is interesting to note that CERN is built on the same spot. The last thing I would like to just add on this topic is, whereas my Almighty Father in heaven, the power lies in his word, for he speaks things or actions into existence. Amazing is our glorious Father in heaven. Here you have all the information that you could find on CERN. I mean, this is just a gist, letting you know the size, the amount of money, the added components that they added, you know, certain things that maybe you were interested in learning. And I really am not going to go over this information to not make this video too long, but I just wanted to add it for you. Another thing I wanted to add to this thought is, in the 1980s, Tim Berners-Lee created the World Wide Web. Mr. Berners-Lee built the World Wide Web because it was a component needed for the LHC to function. I added several quotes that he has there. He used similar ideas to those underlying the Enquire system to create the World Wide Web, for which he designed and built the first web browser. His software also functioned as an editor called World Wide Web, running on the Next Step operating system, and the first web server, CERN HTTPD, short for Hypertext Transfer Protocol Daemon. Yes, you heard me correctly. Berners-Lee published the first website, which described the project itself, on December 20th, 1990. It was available to the internet from the CERN network. The site provided an explanation of what the World Wide Web was and how people could use a browser and set up a web server, as well as how to get started with your own website. On August 6, 1991, Berners-Lee first posted on Usenet a public invitation for collaboration with the World Wide Web project. And I just want to finish this piece here with Daniel 12, verse 4. But you, Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book until the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall increase. Here I have added all the information about the experiments that have been done at CERN, and the amounts of energy that they have increased, and also the things that they have, the components that they have added in order for to elevate their experimentation, is something that should be further researched. Interestingly, the purpose of these experiments is to push the collider to its limits. Should this be of a concern to us? Satanist and demonic rituals should always be a concern to us, but not that we should be afraid. The solution is quite simple because our Father in heaven is so magnificent. It is intercessory prayer. Do you know what prayer of true believers in the Word of God does to the enemy? They run, literally run. But the first thing we need to understand that this is not a figment of our imagination. It is not a conspiracy. God-fearing people need to wake up to the realization that the enemy is a liar and his job is to come, kill, rob, and deceive you. Please note again, rituals are done to redirect energies for their purposes to be effective. Time, dates, numbers, symbols, energies of the land where the rituals are held of are important. When you do enough research on the war of good and evil, which has been alive since the beginning of time, you will come to learn that location is extremely important. So let's start covering what is electromagnetic waves and how they are formed. This is very important to understand because we're going into the simplicity of what is being created that is so, how can I say, they make it sound so fancy with CERN, but it's not really all that fancy. So magnetic waves are formed. An electric field is produced by a charged particle. A force is exerted by this electronic field on other charged particles. Positive charges accelerate in the direction of the field, and negative charges accelerate in a direction opposite to the direction of the field. The electromagnetic field is produced by an accelerating charged particle. Electromagnetic waves are nothing but electric and magnetic fields traveling through free space with the speed of light. Let me repeat that. Electric and magnetic fields traveling through free space with the speed of light. An accelerating charged particle is when the charged particle oscillates about an equilibrium position. With this definition, we can logically come to the conclusion that whatever this machine is trying to create is causing a shift in energy to create tension. So, simple terminology, the Large Hadron Collider is redirecting energy to manipulate the flow, and it is creating tension because of the amount of power that they are using. Or it could be redirecting energy to try and to change the changing of times. Can this be what is mentioned in Daniel 7:25? And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws. And they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and the dividing of times. Here, what I want to note more in Daniel 7:25 is, and they think to change times and laws. If you question my approach of looking at the company through a lens of ritualistic standpoint, then let me introduce you to CERN's mascot statue, Shiva. Shiva is male, cosmic dancer, naked ascetic, beggar, yogi, untouchable, accompanied by a dog, adro, 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 androgynous, sorry, It's hard for me to say that word. Half male, half female. He is both the great merciless slaughterer of the beasts that are the human souls in his care. The female counterpart, Uma, Sati, Parvati, Durga, and Kali. She was also sometimes paired with Shakti, the embodiment of power. The divine couple, together with their souls, with their sons, Skanda and the elephant-headed Ganesha. The six-headed Skanda is said to have been born of Shiva's seed, which was shed in the mouth of the god of fire, Agni, and transferred first to the river Ganges, and then to six of the stars in the constellation of Pleiades. Shiva is usually depicted in a painting and sculpture as white, from the ashes of corpses that are smeared on his body, with a blue neck, from holding in his throat the poison that emerged at the churning of the cosmic ocean, which threatened to destroy the world. Describing Shiva, I had to also describe the Baphomet, because that's actually the energies are always the same. When you start understanding the spiritual realm, Satan or the devil is it's when you go back to the roots of the word in itself, is an adversary, right? And so it's all the same kind of energies. When you're dealing with the spiritual realm, it's all the same kind of energies. They have different energies, don't get it twisted, but it's all coming um, behind the same things. And the counterpart, of course, that I find from Shiva will be what here in the West is the Baphomet. That's, I mean, they literally having statues and everything on this side of the world. I just can't believe it, but yeah, it's being thrown in our face on a daily basis. I had to add him. So understanding this, the way energy functions and what this collider is doing, creating tension, bringing about a stronger pulse of energy being sent out in free space, has probably interrupted our human anatomy, right? Because look at how much fear, how much tension, how much anxiety, how much people are just functioning at a level that a lot of people are not remembering things. A lot of people, time is just moving fast. There's so many different dynamics from this. I'm not a scientist, I am just an observer, right? So I've observed all these things and how humans and society are functioning now, since these experiments have been going on. I mean, this is not the only dynamic. CERN is not the only dynamic. I'm going to cover several other things of what has changed our society to become into this lawless society which we are in today. I just wanted to point out the energies and how they are definitely changing our energy levels somehow, some way. If there's anyone that has further information and could give us clarification, please put comments below. I would definitely appreciate more enlightenment into this. My last point that I wanted to clarify is that first and foremost, we the one thing that um, CERN supposedly is searching for is the God particle, right? That they so claim they are searching for. If you have any personal relationship with God, you will know the answer to this. But if you don't, obviously not, right? Because they're not going to find the God particle the way they're searching. That's number one. Another conspiracy theorist is that they conspire, they're stating that they're searching for the fallen angels, or they're trying to open up the abyss of the bottomless pit. And again, just to remind everyone, our Father is omnipotent, which means that God is in total control of his creation. And so in the Bible, it states from Revelation 9, 1 through 6, it states, I'm just going to read the first verse and I'm going to add the other ones for your visual. That the fifth angel sounded his trumpet, and I saw a star angel being that had fallen from heaven to the earth, and the key to the bottomless pit abyss was given to him, the star angel. As a matter of fact, let me just keep reading it. He opened the bottomless pit, and smoke like the smoke of a great furnace flowed out of the pit, and the sun and the atmosphere was darkened by the smoke from the pit. Then out of the smoke came locusts upon the earth, and power to hurt was given to them, like the power which the earth scorpions have. They were told not to hurt the grass of the earth, nor any green thing, nor any tree, but to hurt only the people who did not have the seal, the mark of ownership, protection of God on their foreheads. They were not permitted to kill anyone, but to torment and cause them extreme pain for 5 months. And their torment was like the torment from a scorpion, which stings a man. And in those days, people will seek death and will not find it, and they will long to die to escape their pain, but will discover that death evades them. So here we see that, it's God's authority, and when he decides that, because this is part of our tribulation, when he decides that that key is going to be given for that abyss to be open, the bottomless pit, then it shall be open. One last point I wanted to make with Revelation. Revelation 9:11 also indicates that they have as king over them the angel of the bottomless pit. His name in Hebrew is Abaddon, and in Greek he is called Apollyon. So with that being said, CERN does recognize this energy, which is again another, fact of this company. I mean, everything that they do is basically based on rituals. But let's keep moving. What I do note is that I found information where what I think is actually occurring with CERN is in chapter 27 of the book of Baruch. It covers 12 sections of the ends of time. Chapter 27 states, a multitude of specters and attacks of the Shadem. Shadem in Hebrew word, it means demons, spirits, and designates a supernatural creature in Jewish folklore. Specters are visible disembodied spirits, ghosts. The depiction in this verse of the book of Baruch seems more of what CERN is trying to achieve on Earth, because the way they're moving energies or trying to extract energies, they are definitely not going to be able to release the fallen angels, but are they able to release the visual shadems and specters that is noted in chapter 27 of the book of Baruch? In my opinion, this will drive the people of the world insane, especially if they have no understanding of what's happening to them. It is an obvious picture for the unexplainable behavior in the people in our society today. Evil is coming to the forefront in our everyday lives. Just look at the news. In Jesus' time, the apostles will be casting out demons left and right. Baptisms will be on the rise. Intercessors will be praying daily, and people will be in awe with God's miracles daily. And this is something that should be noted because, I'm not the first person to say this. Derek Prince was an excellent minister, and he would state this on a constant basis, right? We deal with demons attaching themselves to us, and we see their manifestations in different things that we go through: anger, stress, depression, oppression, pains in our bodies, illnesses. And so it's something that we need to ask, right? Remember, when Jesus came, he came for deliverance. So here we have the entire chapter of Baruch 27, the 12 sections of the end of times that God explained to Baruch. And just a little history on this story. Baruch had to fast for 7 days and stay away from his congregation, in other words, right? I mean, we're talking about Israel, so I don't know how they directed his people, but he had to stay away from his people. And he was one of the prophets that they relied on. And so this was at a time that I believe it was it? I'm trying to remember who was the king that took the people away. I believe it was Nebuchadnezzar, maybe. I might be incorrect, but I will find out the correct information about Baruch. I'm a little tired right now, so, but they were going through they were going through, you know, harsh times, and in order for him to get responses on what he needed to do, he would fast and pray and intercede in prayer constantly for Israel. And that's what he did. And so when he did that for a whole entire week, he didn't eat. And when it was his appointed time to speak to God, God gave him this revelation. When we look at Baruch verse 8, it reminds me of the sculpture that sits on the Pope's throne. Kindly see how it looks like a whole bunch of different ghosts or whatever that is coming out of something. It's somewhere. Also, I noted all the dimensions and who was the architecture for this sculpture. Kindly refer to the numbers of the dimensions of the sculpture. Do you really think these dimensions are just a coincidence? I tell you, these people are precise when it comes to their numbers and locations, even who designs their work. They focus on every detail. The energies that rule this earth have a goal in mind, and it's to keep your soul. With this thought, I must be very clear and point out the truth, that you are on this earth temporarily, and therefore you will die at some point. Make sure your struggle on this earth is to fight for your eternal life through our Father, for his yoke is light. For those of whom have no understanding of who Baruch was, he was a prophet in the times of Jeremiah, and he is mentioned in the book of Nehemiah and Jeremiah in many verses. But they do not reveal all he did for Israel. He was a great intercessor for the people of Israel. In chapter 27, God explains to Baruch the end times in 12 parts, which you will find in the slide before this one. Now our next subject is human experimentations that were done in the early 1950s. This era was epic for the United States and for human society, period. But it was really epic because there was a lot of changes from then moving forward till now. So the viewpoints that I'm going to acknowledge, that I'm going to state here are my viewpoints, but let's just bring it to a perspective, right? Logically, we can assess that in the 1950s, an average man had little education compared to the supposed scholars of today. Back in these days, there was such a thing as a blue-collar worker that was able to use their logic to reason and apply their knowledge to make a decent living. There were many new startup businesses. People were not scared of hard labor, and they made good money out of it. Discernment was high because society still had a relationship with God, and we trusted in God. In the 1950s, most American households owned their own homes. Even then, when they were at a poorer scale, they were on their way to saving their money to own something. Life was not a lot more peaceful in those days. The entire world wanted to migrate to this country and become citizens. People came to this country to live in freedom, work hard, and achieve their goals. Everybody was singing, "I like to live in America." This was the country that dreams came true. With all the education that our children have today, will they be able to own something once they pay off their student loans? Today's world's view is that people should become minimalist and own nothing. While I also feel that materialism is part of the programming, I feel that this should be by choice, not dictated as we see today. This statement is my opinion, which can be debated. Kindly leave your comments below. So, for the purposes of the information that I'm about to state here and how it could impact this video being accepted, I just put the information there so you could view it. And we're just going to speak about the dynamics of what was done at that time. From 1948 to 1975, the agencies below conducted human research experimentations to evaluate the impact of different, how can I put this? Pharmaceuticals, protective clothing, and low dose shots. And actually, I note them in the following sections so you could read. The project was somewhat legal because they did have um, the participants sign somewhat of a consent form, but the problem was it wasn't really actually informed consent because they didn't know entirely what they were being exposed to. So this made a big difference because in those days, what they did was that they were experimenting on how they would uh, get to the point of where we are today, which is kind of a demoralization of society, right? There was a purpose to this, right? Once you develop a country, um, the infrastructure and everything, and that's we as people, we're the ones that build it, we're the ones that work it, we're the ones that create it, right? um, for others, for the powers that be, so they could have the structure, the infrastructure, they could have and use it to their, how can we say, to their benefits, okay? So now, when you view the information that I put here, you will see how they implemented all these different experiments to see how human behavior or how they could deplete our mental, um, how we react to certain things, and how could they diminish our beings, because that is the purpose, right? To diminish the way we think, to change our minds, to change our priorities, to divert the way the state of the mental state that we're in order for them to be able to implement different thoughts. And that I cover a little bit in a section that I have later on with demoralization. But please kindly review the information that I have provided in the next 3 slides. take your time and read through them, because it's really drastic on all the experimentations that they did, and probably they're still doing to this day. The reason why these are very important is because they're going to come to my ending point, and we'll speak about that once we get to that point. I have to add this. So this program was disguised under the Medical Research Volunteer Program, and it was held from 1956 to 1975. Kindly note when the experiment originally started, when I stated before, and when they started documenting it. They used over 7,000 participants, and they were exposed to 250 different substances. Um, These experiments were abruptly terminated in the late 1975 because because of other programs that were exposed at the time. And like I stated before, unlike other research subjects, these signed informed consent forms, which is considered a legal binding document. So, it's always deception, lies, and if you do not state the complete truth, then there is a big deception behind it. But that's something that we should have been had our eyes open. This was in the 1950s. We're in the year 2020, 22 already. So it's 70 something years, okay? Just to note on that. Here is a list of what um, experiments were conducted and how many of the participants participated in. Here is a list of some of the substances that they used, and you should look up some of them so you could see how far this went. Here is the list and of more substances that they used, and type of the kinds of different experimentations that they did. Also, their victims of choice, and another list of different projects that did similar experimentations, and a lot of these had no consent whatsoever. Here is more substances that they did use on their subjects. And also I highlighted this doctor in particular because of the type of abuse that he did. And he was actually a witness to, um, or he participated in the Nuremberg trials. Isn't that ironic? You could read the story. I just left it there. Here is the ending of the story of the doctor, and also it covers how the experiments supposedly were stopped. I mean, we don't know till this day what they're using, but at least those experiments at that time were stopped because of these committees. The next subject I want to cover is the gaming world and how it has impacted our day-to-day interactions. God showed me this character called Throt, Thrott, from Warhammer. He showed me is he showed me that this is one of the energies that will be released. I was in awe because I would have never known. I don't watch TV much, let alone play video games, and how amazing and detailed is our Almighty Father in heaven. The game's website indicates that Trat is one of Hell's Pit's most feared lord, but both creating a leading vast numbers of bloodthirsty creatures. As leading vast numbers of bloodthirsty creatures as the master mutator of Clan Molder. Whenever Throt fights, he yields creatures killer in one of the three arms, a modified things catcher that can grab and throttle beasts as large as rat orgies. I don't know what that is. But and so he is the third of 9 lords of the Hell Pit. And there's other details that you could go on to their website. I wasn't able to grab the picture of this Throt because of copyright issues, and I didn't find any ones that I was able to use. So I advise you to go in and find this character. And that's interesting to know because these are the games that they expose us to. When my boys were growing up, and they played games like Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon, half of the characters that they named were things that I was studying in ancient in Egyptian hieroglyphics, and they were real. Names and functions that were being displayed in these cartoons and playing cards were real. Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Supernatural series were also things that they watched. The symbolism, chants, setting up of the rituals that were used were real. And I wonder now if the incantations that they would chant were also real. What did they mean? I was ignorant at the time of how much harm this could do to my family. And 15 years later, I'm living it, trying to correct the matter and sharing my lessons. So let's look at the logical points of these views on this matter. While television gives you the illusion of a story, video games take you a step further in interacting with this illusion. So let's look at some studies and court cases, opinions, and facts. In 2010, there was a court case brought up in the Supreme Court of the United States. The court case was the court case came up in the Supreme Court of the United States, Brown, Governor of California et al. Versus Entertainment Merchants Associates et al. The number of the case was 08-1448. It was argued on November 2nd, 2010, and the decision came down on June 27, 2011, just in case you guys want to look it up. I just took bits and clips of their viewpoints. The opinion starts off by saying California's argument would fare better if there was a long-standing tradition in this country of specifically restricting children's access to depictions of violence, but there was none. Certainly, the books we give children to read or to read to them when they were younger contain no shortage of gore. The Grimes fairy tales, for example, are grim indeed. In Snow White's story, the evil queen is trying to poison the Snow White. The wicked queen is made to dance in red hot slippers, which that's another story if you ask me. Hansel and Gretel were baking their captor in an oven, and the list goes on. Many in the 1940s and early 1950s blamed comic books for fostering a preoccupation with violence and horror among the young, leading to rising juvenile crime rate. The argument in the case was that the video games present special problems because they are interactive in that the player participates in violent action on screen and determines its outcome. As Judge Posner comes back to the argument as follows. All literature is interactive. The better it is, the more interactive, sorry. Literature, when it is successful, draws the reader into the story, makes him identify with the characters, invites him to judge them and quarrel with them, to experience their joys and sufferings as the reader's own. He stated that all literature is interactive. The better it is, the more interactive. Literature, when it is successful, draws the reader into the story, makes him identify with the characters, invites him to judge them and quarrels with them, to experience their joys and sufferings as the reader's own. Another opinion. Justice Alito did considerable independent research to identify video games in which violence is astounding. Victims are dismembered, decapitated, disemboweled, set on fire, and chopped in little pieces. Blood gushes, splatters. Justice Alito acknowledges the gruesome but disgust is not valid basis for restricting expression. Then the argument goes further of freedom of speech, changing the point completely. Justice Alito's argument highlights the precise danger of posted by the California Act. The idea expressed by speech, whether it be violence or gore or racism, and not its objective effects, may be the reason for governmental proscription, the action of forbidding something, banning. Because the act imposes a restriction on the content of protected speech, it is invalid unless California demonstrates that it passes strict scrutiny, that is, unless it is justified by a compelling government interest and is narrowly to serve that interest. Honestly, I have a lot to say about the ending of this legal argument, but I will let your own logic come to that conclusion. Today, they have restricted any form of expressing our freedom of speech, but let me not change our subject. Now we can use also an article of that time. The name of the article is Violence, Video Games, and Young People, published around the same time, October 2010. It has some very interesting points of views. Let's see what the let me see. So sorry about that. The article was published by Harvard Medical School. An analysis found that more than half of all videos games rated by the ESRB, Entertainment Software Rating Board, contained violence, including more than 90% of those rated as appropriate for children 10 years and older. One of the key points they stated was that much of the research on violent video games relies on measures to assess aggression that does not correlate with real-world violence. Some studies are observational and did not prove cause and effect. The AAP, American Academy of Pediatrics, cites studies that link exposure to violence in the media, which includes discussion of video games as well as television, movies, and music, with aggression and violent behavior in use. The AAP policy describes violent video games as one of the many influences on behavior, noting that many children's television shows and movies also contain violent scenes. But the authors believe that the video games are particularly harmful because they are interactive and encourage role-playing as such. The authors fear that these games may serve as virtual rehearsals for actual violence. The article also added this one interesting piece to me: a comprehensive report of targeted school violence commissioned by alphabet agencies. I'm not going to include who they are, just imagine. You could look up the um, the article, I gave the name and who published it and the year it was published, concluded that more than half of the attackers demonstrated interest in violent media, including books, movies, and video games. However, the report cautioned that no particular behavior, including interest in violence, could be used to produce a profile of a likely shooter. Now let's identify and use our logic to the conclusion of this report. Would the same conclusion be valid today in 2022? So here we have, um, in one side we have statistics, and the other side we're going to go into demoralization of society. This lecture is really important. It's done by Thomas Schumann, and I advise everyone to sit down and really watch this video because it really brings into light what is happening in our world today. But let's just take a look at the statistics that I was able to find, because when you look at the alphabet agency that's supposed to be keeping up with the crime statistics, they haven't updated their website since 2019, as you read in the bottom. But crime across all major cities in the United States today has gone up 33%. And this is what they want to admit. I believe it's a lot more higher. Listen to this, 48% in car theft alone across the nation. And I also highlighted which are the websites that gave me this information, just so you could go and, you know, look up the information, because it's really astounding. And so the reason why I bring this up is because, you know, once you add in demoralization and how they, the powers that be designed our upcoming and then our downfall, right? There was a purpose to all of this. And so, you know, we just have to be aware that this purpose has been accomplished on their points. And at this time, it's up to us to wake up and know that it's time to get closer to God. We really need to. And I'm going to identify why is that that's what needs to be done in the next couple of slides, because we're going to talk about my Almighty Father finally. But let's just go over demoralization and what it is. Basic, right? So demoralization, to demoralize a society, it takes one generation to shape up an ideology and personality. From 15 to 20 years, influencing the people through religion, education, social life, power structures, military, labor relations, which I did not add. And so, like I stated, you should watch the video, because I don't want to really take out of his what he all the work that he did. But I just want to note that the most effective method of demoralization is somatic manipulation of the population, or word population, whereby the normal true meaning of words and traditionally accepted meanings are being gradually replaced by Orwellian type surrogates, particularly or totally opposite to reality. Doesn't that sound so familiar? Their main goal is psychological change of national and individual perception of reality, to such an extent that the majority of the nation does not perceive any danger emanating from totalitarianism. Moreover, the hostile system is ultimately accepted as non-belligerent and even in certain aspects desirable in any case. functional as an alternative to the present one. It's really important for people to watch this video. The lecturer is Thomas Schumann, and the introduction is Demoralization of Society. I mean, I cannot highlight how important this lecture is for what's going on in society today. But that's not my point in this video. My point in this video is basically to introduce you to why it's important for you to be aware of the nature of the powers that be, not to be scared of them, and know the power that is in my Father. And that's where we're going to start off now in the next slide. Gathering all this information together gets me to the most important part of this video. The enemy has created this entire fictional world in front of us to distract us from the power that we have within us. If we are to truly focus on the real reason we were sent to earth, which is to identify our glorious Father in heaven and to know that He is God. Build a relationship with Him in order to be able to be guided by the Holy Spirit to live the best life that we can here on earth. We are designed to live like this, period. Our Holy Divine Father is described as omniscience, means that He is the ultimate criterion of truth and falsity, so that His ideas are always true. Omnipresence means that since God's power and knowledge extend to all parts of His creation, He Himself is present everywhere. God is light. Omnipotent means one who has ultimate unlimited power or authority. As history always repeats itself, the enemy has tried since the beginning of time to manipulate God's creation and has constantly failed. This can be a long conversation because we have been polluted with all types of GMOs, with the waters that we drink, pollutants in the air, microwave radiation, unnecessary pharmaceuticals, visual distortions. The reality is humans are resilient to what the enemy throws at us. We keep surviving and growing stronger. God's creation is perfection. Please laugh out loud at our reality, because that is the reason why the enemy tries to trap us from every angle. Everything the enemy tries to do to the humans, we eventually survive and conquer. 75% of the population is not aware of how big this war is against us. They feel it's just life when we are being manipulated in many different areas of our lives. They call people like me a conspiracist because I question everything, research everything, and look for a logical explanation. I wear my badge with honor. There is a purpose to oppose us, demoralize us, keep us as a dumb society. See whomever these folks are behind that veil, they understand the power that we have when we can manifest ourselves supernaturally. Our Almighty Father in heaven gave us dominion over all. Therefore, the enemy has consumed the society with taking away the truth about our Father. Generation by generation, we are kept in sin, greed, self-indulgence, sexual immorality, which is a biggie to God, okay? Idolatry, pharmakia, pride, and the list goes on. They have been feeding us Aleister Crowley's concept of do as thy wilt. And so it might feel good for a moment, but once we turn our faces from God, we already lost, because true power lies with our Father. Our Father is the creator of all. See, the Almighty God speaks things into existence, into the physical world. For us to be able to manifest what we need, we must request it by prayer. If it is in our Father's will, then it shall be manifested. There are certain rules for this power to manifest. If it's in accordance with our Father's will, if you have the relationship with your Father, so He can be able to hear your request. Is your request going to hurt someone else in the process? His will determines who will be punished because there is a season for everything. Is your request of selfish motives? Will it change the alignment of the destiny that has been designed for you? Does your request change the trajectory of a lesson that was thrown at you for spiritual maturity? Now we know that the enemy can move energy, but the fact is that our Father has total control over everything in this world. The enemy is allowed to manifest his powers to a certain degree. And yes, the Almighty Father will allow the enemy to do this at certain times with his children if it serves a purpose for our Father and your spiritual maturity. We can see an example in this in the Bible with Job, with the story of Job. Job 1, 7 through 16. I did not put it because this video is becoming long, but you can look it up. Again, the story is Job 1, 7 through 16. Although the serpent has some authority, let me be very clear. We have been given dominion over all. It is written in Genesis 1:26. God gave man dominion to rule over all the earth after the likeness and the image of God. Man was created to rule over the earth with the same authority that God rules over all things. Man was literally given the lordship to be Lord on the earth. What makes us lose this power and makes us weaker is the guilt of sin, which opens the door to the enemy having right to attack us because he is the prince of this world and we are in his kingdom. Kingdoms have decrees and laws, and that's a rule that we must follow to have the correct outcome. Please note, there's a lot of different religions now. I do not follow any religion because I've come to the understanding that, like I stated, there's decrees, there's laws, and these are kingdoms. Our Father has his kingdom, and there's this kingdom on earth, and so basically, I don't acknowledge any religion because of that fact, right? We are citizens. I feel that I am an ambassador to my Father's kingdom, and that's how I feel. Other people you have their own opinions, but that's basically my opinion and how I direct and issue anything that comes to deal with my Father. Now, there's another issue that I found. And it's researching the Bible. In the Christian Bible, we have 66 books, and there is a lot of miscellaneous information that has been taken out. And since I basically question the powers that have been ruling this earth since the beginning of time, I look at other books, right, to give me the references. And just to give you an example of what I'm speaking about, in Exodus 8:19, it states, "Then the magicians said to Pharaoh, 'There is the finger of God.' But Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and he did not listen to them as the Lord has said." And the reason why I want to bring that up is, how does the Egyptian magician know about the power in the finger of God? Well, in the book of Enoch, book 3, you will find an entire chapter dedicated on the power of God's mighty hand. I have included the entire chapter below. It is a very interesting read. You can draw your own conclusions. But this is very important for me to understand because God gave me a prophecy to record at the end of May. It is very important word. It is a very important word. You can find the video in my YouTube channel, and it is called 581 Days of Judgment. God wants to prepare his children for what's coming, what we are going to face, and how to overcome it. We must not fear because he will be moving his mighty hand for his children. Vengeance is the Lord. He will hand over our enemies. They will fall right in our hands. This means that the people are also under the same judgment. I'm speaking only for the United States. The wicked are under judgment worldwide. With this video, he wants us to understand the energies that will be behind the enemies that are coming up against us, which will be the dark forces. The Shaddam that I was speaking about, the energies that he spoke about the video game that I had mentioned. That's just an example. I'm giving examples. So trying to impose a visual of something that has not been seen, right? And also the agitation of the energies, which will manifest in key individuals that have been structured in our society to come up against us. And in order for you to get a full picture of what I'm saying, you're going to have to combine both videos. So go back and watch that video that I'm speaking about that's in my YouTube videos, and then come back to this one and look at all the energies that I was talking about and how they have society so confused at the present time to make this possible and be able to try to win, because it's just trying. The video is going to acknowledge the importance of why we need to get close to him. And while everyone is worried about material things of how to survive, the problem is spiritual warfare will be the fight that we are fighting. And the fight that we are fighting is for our soul. So in order for you to understand this, the word of God is the sword that we need in order to save us. The most important part that you need to understand is that you must not fear not, and know how strong you are when you walk with God. If it wasn't so, the enemy would not have worked so hard to deceive you. The story has been written, and we are victorious. I do not believe we have the entirety of the current Bible in front of us, but I'm still doing research. One of the things that you must also understand is that there is stories already out here. Like, for example, when we speak about the children of Israel, the 12 sons of Jacob, right? When they took over in the book of the Maccabees, when they took over the giants, they fought against giants. And I will be bringing, just so I won't make this video so long, I will be bringing out the power of that God gives us when it's time for us to defend ourselves, right? This is not allotted to us at any given moment, because his power is mighty. That's why I put in the chapter of Enoch in book 3. You know, when the description of God's mighty hand, it's just amazing. And all of this is what I found in my research, that all this information has been taken out of the current Bible that we have today. So you will be lost in understanding how supernaturally powerful you are if you walk with God. And so we also have to understand, because a lot of people would think, well, it's so hard for me to be perfect. And when you look at the characters in all the Bible, even the Bible as you currently are visually seeing in the 66 books, most of his prophets had issues, and they, nobody was perfect. It's your heart and how true your heart is. But the challenges are coming to us now, and we need to be prepared. And so there was a purpose for this video. My father has been issuing me to bring it out for a long time, and since that first video that came out. But it's very hard to compose these things, and I'm new to this, so bear with me with the information that I brought out today. I will be happy to respond to any questions. And so the next thing is to start taking over, and I will be bringing out videos in the next following days with that information. Please keep in tuned. And thank you for the time that you spend watching this video or listening to me speak about these important issues. May God be with everyone, and victory is ours. We need to stand united. Blessed be.